Welcome to topywen, the only podcast you will ever need where the W is important. Today's topic, which I decided upon about 15 seconds ago, is the value of art. And specifically, I suppose today, the value of music. This is based upon a few factors. Number one, the singer of Procol Harum died. Number two, the second episode of Kanye West's documentary Jeen-Yuhs was released. Number three, Kanye West had the Donda 2 listening event, the listening show. Number four, I saw on Twitter that Kanye's releasing Donda 2, which is his latest album, solely on his own platform, not his own platform shoes. He has a little pebble that he released to the world for $200. And this pebble allows you to listen to music. It's a glorified 2020s MP3 player. This particular MP3 player allows you to remix the music. It's a kind of pebble with 4 areas on it. I haven't had it in my hands. Fueled today on Fanta, 0 sugar. I haven't had the pebble in my own hands, but I've seen photographs of it, and I've watched a couple of YouTube videos where people are using it. And it's basically a stem player. And stems, for people who aren't into the music game, are the raw files used for songs. So when someone like me in his studio creates a song, I can separate said song into stems. I could give you a file that's just the drums, a file that's just the bass. I could give you all the keyboards. I could give you the guitars. I could give you a file that's just the vocals. And Kanye West's stem player, by the looks of it, allows you to remix or basically turn the levels up and down volume-wise of 4 different elements of the song. So it might be that you hold Kanye's pebble in your hands, not sexually, and you can adjust the volume of the drums, the volume of the bass, the volume of the synths, and the volume of the vocals. And he's charging you $200 for this experience. Now, the singer of Procol Harum died. This is no research, never any research on this podcast, topywen, the only podcast you'll ever need, where the W is important. The singer of Procol Harum died. Now, I'm not a massive Procol Harum fan. In fact, I can only really name you one Procol Harum song. And that song, to Procol Harum's credit, is one of the greatest songs of all time. So in terms of being a one-hit wonder, which they certainly weren't, because I expect if I were to Google Wikipedia Procol Harum, I'd probably find that they got 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 albums. But they wrote Whitest Shade of Pale. They recorded Whitest Shade of Pale. No research, but I believe it was around the Summer of Love, 1967, this song topped the charts. You'd know it if you heard it. Even if you are the youth of today, you'd know a Whitest Shade of Pale if you heard it. Based on an old classical composition. I think it was Johann Sebastian Bach, but don't quote me on it. But it's the one. Sounds like a cigar commercial. We danced to light fandango and something else. Go on, bloody, the whitest shade of pale. You know the song I'm on about, right? And now I want to talk about the value of music, which is the raison d'etre for being here today. I decided, didn't I, it was 15 seconds, probably a few minutes ago now. But Procol Harum, back in the days when someone wrote a song and someone was assigned the credit of being the songwriter, bands could say a song was written by the band, or list all the band members, or perhaps they had someone else write the song for them, which was a sort of Tin Pan Alley thing that used to happen. Teams of songwriters in the 50s and 60s giving songs to people. Some of your favourite songs by the Monkees were actually written by the likes of Neil Diamond. I'm on the line, straight to Clarksville, I'm waiting at the station. What's the... And I saw her face, dun, 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 dun. I'm a believer. I think that wasn't I'm a Believer written by Neil Diamond. Well, no research. Probably not, no research. But a band would write a song and someone would get credit for that song. And if it was a song like White a Shade of Pale, which was one of the greatest songs of all time, defined the summer of love, perhaps defined the 60s, and although there were more famous bands at the time, like the Stones and the Beatles and the Kinks, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better song than White a Shade of Pale, even amongst the Beatles catalogue. Go and listen to it now if you haven't heard it. It is absolutely majestic. But that song, I don't know if it's for a fact because no research, but that song probably made the songwriter, which we'll assume is a member of the band, a lot of money for a lot of years. And if you added up the money, perhaps it's millions. And perhaps upon the singer's death, I don't know this because I've done no research, but let's imagine, and it definitely might not be the case, but let's imagine that the singer of the band who died a few days ago, let's imagine he wrote White a Shade of Pale, okay? He would have benefited from that song for all of his lifetime. And when he died, the rights to the song could be passed to his family and they could continue to benefit. And let's just imagine that that song took a few minutes to write. I've had songs that have taken me minutes to write. I've had songs that have taken me days or weeks or months or years to write. But let's imagine a handful of minutes work benefits you year after year after year. But the important thing here is that that was a song valued by society at large of the year 1967. The Stones and the Beatles would have been listening to that song. That would have been their peers at the time. They would have been listening to that and thinking, we've got to compete with that. Just like the Beatles heard Pet Sounds and Paul McCartney thought, I need to compete with that. And hence, I think he created Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. They would also have heard A White Shade of Pale. This was an important song. And that would have been played on the radio again and again and again in 1967. But also in 1968 and 69 and 17, into a new decade, Led Zeppelin came along, rock and roll, heavy metal. White Shade of Pale was still being played. Punk came along. White Shade of Pale was still being played. The New Romantics, pop music, Michael Jackson, grunge. White Shade of Pale was still being played. Britpop, hip-hop, Kanye West. And even today, A White Shade of Pale is still being played. And every time it's played on the radio, the songwriter or the publisher, the reality is none of that money is probably going to the band. It's probably going to some publisher, some faceless publisher. But let's just imagine it's going to the band or to the songwriter. Year in, year out, the songwriter of a song that was famous in 1967 has been earning. A song written in 1967 could have been worth by now millions of pounds. Now, the person wouldn't know it at the time of writing, but what they were technically doing when they wrote a song such as A Whiter Shade of Pale, they were, like I just said, unknowingly scribbling onto a paper money. We danced the light fandango. I mean, that would definitely be the incorrect words because I'm rubbish with lyrics. But la da 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 da. The da da da's are words here. And a whiter shade of pale. What they're doing is they're writing dollar signs and writing pound signs. It's art, but it's because art had value. People would write a song and other people wouldn't be able to write a song. And even people who could write songs looked upon such a song and thought, I wish I'd written that song. A Whiter Shade of Pale, that 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it was actually worth a sackload. I nearly said shitload then. A shedload. Sackload. Shedload was worth a shedload of money. It became kind of bricks and mortar in a way. Houses would have been built on the profits from A Whiter Shade of Pale. And art at that time. Houses were bought and built, and drugs were snorted using the end result of the creation of Exile on Main Street, or Revolver, or Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Village Green Preservation Society. People were strumming guitars, playing pianos, writing lyrics, getting together in a studio, pressing record, seeing the red light, playing, making the sound that was captured forevermore on a piece of vinyl. And it earned serious moolah. Money. Moolah, open parentheses, money, close parentheses. So, I have spoken endlessly over the last 10 years, 20 years. But certainly in recent years, maybe even on this podcast recently, certainly on my YouTube channel, I've spoken about the fact that art has been devalued. It's without a doubt, it's been devalued. Now, music's been devalued. Music is considered a free commodity. I suppose music was always a product. And I'm saying that was a good thing. I'm saying you created a whiter shade of pale, and it was a thing. It was tangible. It was a sound that existed and can be replayed by tape players and record players and then CD players and even today in ones and zeros. But it was a thing that existed, and it existed just as much as painting a picture. You paint a picture, you sell said picture, and someone owns said picture. They buy it for 26 million, 10 quid, whatever. They buy it, they own it. Music had value. Music earned money. Music made people happy or sad, made people feel things. Everyone listened to A Whiter Shade of Pale. And then the music industry changed. And it was with the fact that technology came along. And although technology has liberated the people, and it really has, because for all the good, what am I trying to say? For all the bad you could say about the fact that I believe music has become a free commodity, it has been liberating. Anyone now can do anything. So in the old days, there was a studio system, and it was all about being signed. Can we get signed? I've been in bands like that. We'd record demo tapes, and it was all about sending the demo tape to record companies. I've done it. I've had responses from record companies saying no. I've had no response from record companies, but it was a gate. There was a doorway. What am I trying to say? It was gate kept. There were gatekeepers. Society at large, members of society wanted to go and buy instruments and write songs and produce music and play it to people to make money. Maybe it was just sheer artistic love and artistic endeavour, but it was to make money. The hope to get famous and make money, but there were gatekeepers. The record companies said yes or no, and if they said no, that was it. You could exist on the local scene, you could play covers, but you were gatekept. And with the advent of technology and the internet, people being able to record in their own homes, not needing to go to a studio, because that was another element of which I'm only thinking of right now, of being gatekept. Not only did you have the final gatekeepers, like the A&R men and the record company executives, who said yes or no to the money and to put you onto the label, but you were gatekept in that to make the music in the first place, you needed to go to a really expensive recording studio. Every step of the way, gatekeepers. Standing at the door like Hale and Pace, just saying, you're not coming in like that, mate, wearing those trainers. Except the trainers were your musical talent. And it wasn't even necessarily about musical talent. It was how commercial you could be. Gatekeepers, gatekept. And it's liberating. Because now, and it was sort of turn of the century, it's weird you can say turn of the century, but turn of the century, Turner and Hooch, turn of the century, people were able, that's what I was talking about the weekend then, what's he called, Abel? People were able to record songs and albums in their own homes, in home studios. Home studios always existed to a certain extent. You could always buy tape players. You could buy a tape player in the 50s and the 60s. You could record by yourself. Albums have been, I'm not saying albums have never been released like that. And then in the 70s and the 80s, going on to the 90s, going on till now, you had Tascam portable, you had 4-track recorders and things, lots of little plastic things to record on. And some albums, some big albums, I think Bruce Springsteen released an album like that. I think many people have released albums like that. Some of the kind of unfinished Jeff Buckley stuff that was released on Sketches for My Sweetheart the Drunk, I think some of that was on 4-track tape. So there's always been the ability, but at the turn of a century, that ability took on new levels of excellence. You can, honestly, now studio owners won't want to hear me say this and they'll dispute it to a certain extent, but you can record in your own home today an album that sounds just as good as something you could record in $1 million a day studio. They would dispute that, but you can. You can open up your Apple Mac and record straight into Logic. You can record. You can use its plugins for very little money. You can record. Now, I'm not saying that once you get Adele singing into a $100,000 microphone through old, beautiful vintage effects and compressors and things, everything can always be better. Everything can be worse. But it was liberating. People could record in their own homes. People could release music by just pressing a button and putting it out there into the world, into ones and zeros. The gatekeepers were gone. And certainly some bands, I could name, what bands could I name? I think Arctic Monkeys, Ed Sheeran, they made their name like this. MySpace, people were putting music onto MySpace. And they kind of captured the wave. There was a new wave. And they rode that wave. Not everyone can ride that wave because that's what I'm getting onto. That's the bad. But people did ride the wave. And as the music scene was liberated, it was also devalued. Napster came along. And people could file share. Anyone could get any music for free. I didn't really join in that myself, but it was all going on. And it seemed liberating. And at the time, Lars Ulrich from Metallica, he was the drummer. He was the drummer. He still is the drummer of Metallica. He got some flack because everyone, I think at the time, I think it was a shock to people. It certainly was a shock to the record companies. They didn't know what to do. And it was a shock to the artists. And on the whole, they were scared to go against it because it seemed it was that liberation. Don't go against the liberation, but Lars Ulrich stuck his head above the and said, hang on, you're all just taking our music for free. This is stealing. And rather than people thinking, yeah, actually, it is stealing. Yeah, we're stealing music. A few things happened. First of all, people looked at Lars Ulrich, a multi-millionaire. You only have to watch Some Kind of Monster, the documentary about Metallica, around the time of St. Anger, to watch Lars Ulrich selling paintings, quite famous paintings, selling them and earning multi-millions. I think by the end of the sale, you can watch that documentary and watch him selling his artwork, and it goes up over $100 million. He's a multi-millionaire with a great life, drummer of a great band. And people looked at him and went, yeah, what we're stealing, who are you to lecture us on money? And alongside Lars Ulrich doing that, the people in general were enjoying the liberating experience of being able to listen to music for free, to share music, to have access to music that they might not otherwise be able to afford. Everyone probably, I was around at the time, I remember, it didn't seem such a bad thing, but very quickly, it turned the tables completely. And music became something that everyone felt completely justified to steal. And then the record companies who owned the money that should be coming from the playing or the buying of A Whiter Shade of Pale, the record companies realised that people were stealing A Whiter Shade of Pale, and they wanted to sue the people that were stealing the music that they owned, because it was, physical, kind of esoterical physical, but it was physical. It was a physical thing. It snowballed. And the idea of music having no intrinsic value became the norm. So whether it was downloading or later streaming, it has been completely and utterly devalued. Now, I pay for a streaming service. I pay I think it's £10 a month. Funny enough, it is actually for Napster. It's not the same Napster. It's a different company now who just have the name Napster. And Napster, funny enough, pays the artists one of the biggest percentages of the per song play. I think Spotify is one of the worst. But I pay £10 a month for Napster. And honestly, by the time you've paid £10 a month for Napster, £10 a month for Netflix, £10 a month for Prime, £10 a month for Disney, £10 a month for Microsoft Office, £10 a month for this, £10 a month for that, we are being fleeced as a society. And the fleecing of people is probably one of the reasons why we allow ourselves to believe that theft, stealing music is justifiable. You used to hear people say it all the time in the computer game times. Pirating of computer games back in the day of the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, BBC, then the Amiga and the Atari ST. Back in the days when things were on tapes or on discs, piracy was completely justified by people saying, how can you sell this product for 10 quid? And in the days of cartridges, how can you sell this for 60, 70 quid? $100? And it gets to the point where the general public are constantly querying the value that an artist places on their art. So someone will say, Street Fighter 2, how can you justify this cartridge costing 70 quid? This Procol Harum album on CD, how can you justify this costing £14.99? And so people like me, I'm a musician. I'm a producer. I'm a guitar player. I'm a singer. I've produced albums. I believe in the value of art. I pay £10 a month to a streaming service. And then you find out that you've got to listen to a song about 10 million times for the writer of the song to get paid $1. And you think, oh my God, where did this go wrong? Now, people were always fleeced. Musicians back in the days of physical media, CDs, tapes, vinyl, these things would cost 10 quid. Buy a £10 CD, the artist might see £1, and the record company and all the other people involved with it would get £9. But if you think about that still, £1, they would be moaning about that back in the day. You'd hear Prince or Robbie Williams or whoever moaning about it. But now, can you imagine that? Someone listening to your album and you getting paid £1 when they listen to it or buy it. But now, people are only streaming and the artist is only getting $0.000000001. And the people aren't kicking off about that. You don't hear the people, the general public, day in, day out saying, pay the artists more. We're disgusted. No. The general public are going on YouTube and listening to the music from their favourite artists for free. Not everybody. An artist's work is available to be streamed or for free on YouTube. And yet, I'll still go out there and buy the physical product. And I know there is a fact that there will be fans of, say, Mac Miller, who went out and bought his albums on vinyl, even though they didn't have to, because they were supporting him and they wanted to give the artist money. And there are people who buy physical media who don't even own said physical player. Vinyl's the big one. I think they've said they've got like a percentage. It's a very, very high percentage of people who never play the record that they buy. It might be as high as like 70% of people will go out and buy, I'm just looking around here now, Anderson .Paak or The Weeknd or Thundercat. Never put it on their turntable because maybe they don't even own a turntable. And now we've got the resurgence of cassette tape, compact cassette tapes, and I guarantee there are people out there buying cassette tapes who don't own a cassette player. But what they are doing is they're owning something, which is a whole other episode of this podcast, to be fair. The idea of owning physical media and how that can be enriching to the soul. But let's just put that to one side for a minute. They're supporting the artist and they are directly giving the artist some money in this streaming age. There's a small section of the music buying public, that says it all, buying public. There's a small section of the music listening public who are trying to display the fact they believe that music does have value. But what has happened, and is a fact, is that when people were buying Nirvana's Nevermind in 1991, 1990, whatever it was, or the Chili Peppers, or any album, name your album, name any album that's ever been made, when they were buying it in the 80s or the 90s, they had to buy it. You could tape to tape it. But every time you tape to tape with analog, basically when you copied it, it degraded slightly. So the only way to have a pristine copy of something was to buy it. And people bought it. People weren't able to have a conversation about the value they attributed to the music. They couldn't say, well, how much do you feel? How much do you feel it's worth? No, it was worth what the artist said it was worth. And I got in trouble because I said, I did a playthrough of Radiohead's In Rainbows. And I suggested it was the real start. It was post-Napster. So the degradation of the idea of music having value was already in play. But I said that I think it went full tilt when Radiohead, of all people, said, this is our new album In Rainbows, pay us what you think it's worth. Pay us what you want to pay us. And I think a lot of people just put 0.0. I'm going to pay 0.0 and got it for free. Now, apparently the figures at the time showed that it was a huge success. And they got loads of money from it. And people had a go at me in that video in the comments section and said, it wasn't the start of anything, thank you very much, Mercurial number 6. It was just another game plan, another publicity plan, another revenue stream. Don't criticise Radiohead. It wasn't really, I can understand why they did it. People were taking the music for free anyway, so they gave the option of people to not just take it for free, but give some money for it. But what it did in a way was it legitimised the idea that someone could consider music as being worth 0.0. How much do you want to pay me? How much do you want to pay me? How much do you want to pay me for the music that I spent 10 years making and put my heart and soul, for the music I put my heart and soul into? How do you decide what you want to pay me for that experience? 0.0. Enter. Send. Thank you very much. Not everybody. There were probably some fans out there who put astronomical figures in, or just paid what they genuinely felt it was worth. I can't remember if I did. Well, look, put it this way. I would have paid for it, but I bought In Rainbows on vinyl. And like I think I said in that video, because I'm an idiot, everyone else is out there just scooping, just hit and run, scoop, 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 music for free, arts for free, yeah, in my mouth. And there's me going, I'll just buy my vinyl record and put it on my turntable and put the needle, put the needle on. Yeah, I think that the artists getting involved with the idea of music being for free And there was probably always rebellious people out there who were producing. They wanted their music to be free. It's for the people. It's like Wolfie Smith's. Power! Here's my music. Take it for free. I demand you take it. Don't give me any money. I don't know. I've been like it with my YouTube channel. I can see all sides of everything. That's the problem. It's like having the all-seeing eye. People want to give me money. I've spent thousands. Come on, you must be listening to this. You must be a watcher of my YouTube channel. But I have spent thousands of pounds each time I've done it. Each time I did, don't know whether I'll ever do them again. Each time I did an episode of my Discover series, which was listening to a record and adding value, I bought the record, I bought the lights, bought the sound systems, the Michael Jackson Joe Rogan microphone, all the various things going on here, put the time in, my effort. Thousands of pounds per episode, 152 times. I think each record costs like 20, 30 quid. Oh my God. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds down. Never asked for a penny. People are actually typing, we would want to give you money, Mercurial number 6. And perhaps that's the route I should have gone, because I've reached a bit of a dead end with it all now. But that's a topic of conversation for another time. But I think the artists themselves didn't help the cause, because you had the people being given a technology that enabled them to have art for free, music for free. You had record companies that didn't know quite how to combat it. And you had artists that were embracing it. So what happened was music now costs nothing. And then Kanye West gets flack for charging $200 for his latest album. And I've seen a few people sticking up for it. But on the whole, people have been aghast, totally upset. How can Kanye West demand that we use this media player to play his album? The only way you can get Donda 2 is to spend $200 on this pebble so we can hold and stroke Kanye's pebble. Not sexually. Think about that, right? I've just talked about how music was once worth something, and White as Shade of Pale, written in 1967, it's probably made millions and millions of pounds. And then in the last 10 years, no music has made any money at all. People make money from other things. They'll write a song and they'll sell some t-shirts or go on tour or sell something or stream something. And Kanye dares to say in 2022, he dares to say, you need to pay $200 to listen to this album. This album is worth I'm telling you. This is the same guy who in episode 1 of his documentary said, I'm not giving you beats for free. He knew then, and that was, what was that, the early noughties, 20 odd years ago, 20 years ago probably, yeah? He believed in his heart then that his music was not for free. And then people are surprised that today he has the power to say, my music is not free. You've got to pay $200. Now, I'm not, even by the time this is released into the world, this podcast, it may be that he's already backed down on that. And let's face it, someone will immediately put it onto YouTube anyway. So everyone will be listening for free. But the fact that he decided, and he's telling his audience what he feels his music is worth. And I know he puts loads of songs. The last album, Donda 1. Star Wars A New Hope, Donda 1. Just say, it had a load of songs on it, but let's just say that Donda 2 has 20 songs on it, right? Let's just say it does. That means that Kanye West is saying that each song costs you $10. There you go. Live with it. Love it. Live with it. Do it. Or don't do it. Do it and listen to it, or don't do it and don't listen to it. If you're a fan, you need to go and spend the money and buy the album. If you're not a fan, shut the fuck up. It's just mental. And then people will say, I'm priced out. I'm priced out. I'm a real true Kanye fan and I can't afford $200. Well, you know what? Life isn't fair. But I'm supporting the artist's right to say, I created this, and this is how much it costs. Now, I don't think too highly of Kylie. I need to call him Kylie West then. Kylie West. Kanye West. To me, he's someone who's been off the rails for a long time. I watched the second episode of his documentary. Absolutely great. You've got to watch it. Second episode was just as great as the first episode. But I've seen people saying things like, there you go, proof. Everyone should just shut up. This is proof that Kanye's always been the same. Like, somehow they watched episode 1 of this documentary, and what they got from it was that it was like I'll just repeat myself. They watched it and they saw it as a proof that the Kanye then is the same as the Kanye today. Look at Kanye today. Well, he was always like that. I see a completely different Kanye. I don't know, right? I'm not a massive Kanye West fan. I don't know much about him. I don't watch, I don't read. I see his tweets and his Instagram posts. I've watched the documentary now. I've listened to the majority of his albums. I've seen him on the news. But this Kanye today is not the same as that Kanye. They're very, very different. If you can't, I find it interesting that people really do believe that he hasn't changed. I'm not saying he's changed for the worst, but he's changed. What's the same though is supreme confidence. And what came across in the second episode of the documentary was that I think it was Pharrell Williams, is it? The happy bloke? I'm not sure. Don't really know him. But Kanye met up with him in the studio and played him a song. And Pharrell kind of runs out of the studio and dances around in the corridor and comes back and says, Kanye, that was absolutely fantastic. You have shocked me with how good that was. And he takes Kanye aside and he says, you're going to get famous, man. You're going to get famous. It's a fact. It's obvious. But don't lose the hunger. You've got the hunger. I don't think you're going to lose the hunger, but make sure you don't lose the hunger. And that made me feel better about my first episode review, which was last week's podcast. Because I talked about that. I said what I got from episode 1, and Pharrell is agreeing with me, is that it's about hunger. Having it's determination and confidence and having the talent, but it's the hunger. And the hunger comes across. The Kanye then to the Kanye now. The hunger comes across. The Kanye today, I see him as a very different man. I watched the Joe Rogan interview that he did. People loved it. People thought he came across as a genius. I think at the time I might have even used the word genius. It's an odd one, isn't it? He came across as a clever man, but he was all over the place. Absolutely all over the place. And that's, I think if you took him there as a snapshot, I know there's issues, the bipolar thing, and I know there's so many issues, and there's the fame and the choice, what's love, but the choice to marry into even more fame. But I think as a snapshot, like kind of all over the place thing, wearing Make America Great Again hats and hanging out with Trump. And then I mentioned the Trump allegiance, and people came back at me and said, in one of my old videos, people come back at me, oh, no, he was doing it in an ironic fashion. Didn't you notice Mercurial number 6? He was aligning himself with Trump in an ironic fashion to launch his own presidential bid. And I was like, it was ironic. What planet are we? Just bear in mind, Kanye fans, and I do. What, did I say I wasn't one? I am one. When it comes to his music, it's absolutely spot on, and the documentary shows it. Genius. But he's all over the place. All over the place. And then he does these listening parties. And I didn't watch, because I knew I was going to listen to the first Donda and do like a reaction to it. I chose not to watch any of the listening parties or get involved with him playing the album over here and playing the album over here. But I watched this one for Donda 2. What an interesting experience. Now, for any negatives I just said about the guy, because there are, and I'm you know, we can reiterate them, but there's a lot of relationship stuff. He has an inability to just rein himself in. He will just text, tweet, Instagram, say some of the things he said. He'll just say anything. He'll speak from the heart, I suppose. The supporters will just say, well, it's Kanye, isn't it? It's Kanye. Just let him. But for all the negatives, I watched the staging of this thing. I mean, a listening party. People have always had listening parties. There's a listening party in the Metallica documentary, Some Kind of Monster. They get some press into the studio and they play the album. And everyone sits there and nods. They've had all the recording equipment taken off them or whatever, and pens and paper taken off them. They just sit there, but they listen. It's a listening party. People have historically had listening parties. You record your new album. Even if you're a local band, you record your album. You play it out loud in a house or in a club, and everyone has a drink, and it's a listening party. So Kanye West has a listening party. This thing, I watched this thing, right? This is like a listening party on an epic scale. This reminds me, right? Or wait, this will get some of you really angry now. No, I don't give a shit. This will get some of you really angry, right? This reminded me of my reaction videos. I get an album, put it on the record player. I light the room with whatever coloured lights and stuff. Get me sound system. I get another microphone, sometimes my SM58 over there. Sounds SM, it sounds sexual, it's not. I might sing over the music. I might play tambourines over the music. Or shakers over the music. Or wooden frog over the music. I might add a guitar solo, like I did in the old days on stuff like, I don't know what it was. Some of the Kanye albums, Jeen-Yuhs and stuff. I'm sitting here playing over pre-recorded music with a guitar or adding my own vocals with all the lights. So I'm watching this listening party and Kanye is playing his music and putting bits and pieces over the top of it. And the sound, the setting that he uses in this Donda 2 one, the burned out house and the water and the lighting and the fire and the absolutely spectacular. It's like something from Apocalypse Now, something like Francis Ford Coppola would do. Absolutely spectacular. There are issues. The sound. Everyone, the sound. Kanye himself. I don't know what's wrong with the guy. He does not look happy. I know his personal issues, like I keep saying. I'm being a bit flippant here. And I can imagine you typing in the comment section, if there was a comment section on a podcast, which there isn't. But he looks like he has issues. It's tricky. But then you see what he produces as what he calls a listening party. And it looks like a movie. I mean, if the sound had been perfect, you could release that listening party on a DVD, on a streaming service or whatever, and have it as it's an art performance, like my reaction videos. It's an art performance that could have just represented the album forevermore. Forget having to make videos and stuff. If that performance had been pulled off perfectly, I know the songs will change over time and everything, but that performance stands in its own right. It's performance art. Kanye West, I've never seen it done before. You might be able to tell me now, hip hop fans and pop fans, whether this is something that's happened before. But a listening party in a stadium where an artist plays their work in progress with a stage set like it's out of Apocalypse Now, with amazing lighting and orchestration, and he has Alicia Keys come in and sing, and it's like a listening party that's also a concert. And then you've got his documentary called Jeen-Yuhs, and you don't want to call someone like Kanye West a genius because he's said so many things that you just think, well, that's not a genius thing to, that's not a clever thing to say, mate. He says and types things that are so anti-genius. And then you listen to his albums You watch that listening party and you factor all of that in, and you think, when you watch those, the 2 episodes of a documentary that I've seen so far, part 1, part 2, the hunger and the confidence and the belief in the value of his art and his ability to reach 2022 and say, this is what my art looks like. Fire, water, lighting, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, and this is what my art's worth, $200. And you think, yeah, you're a genius. You're a genius. 1967, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017, over 50 years. A whiter shade of pale. How much money will a song from the Donda album earn over the next 50 years? A whiter shade of pale? Millions. A song from an album today, released by Travis Scott or Kanye West or The Weeknd? How much in 50 years from now? I would suggest not a lot. I would say the songs that will make their money back will be the ones that were sold for commercial. The songs that earned money via other means. The songs that had a t-shirt sold on the back of them. The songs that were put in adverts. The songs that were used for TV sitcom theme tunes. Because a song, just a song, is probably worth nothing. Till next time. Over and out. Over. Till next time. We said over and out then. Till next time. Over and out.